Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Reed had built his reputation on running the tightest operation in Special Forces Command. His control room at Fort Harrison buzzed with the quiet efficiency of a well-oiled machine, monitors glowing with real-time intelligence, feeds, radio chatter crackling through speakers like electronic prayers. At 38, Reed had climbed the ranks by following one simple rule: trust the system, eliminate variables, maintain control. But there was one variable he could never quite eliminate, one ghost that haunted the pristine halls of his command center. Her name had been Elise Morrow, and she had been the finest sniper in military history until politics destroyed her. The morning everything changed started like any other. Reed stood before the massive tactical display, watching satellite feeds from the South Zira Valley, where Reconnaissance Team Alpha had been conducting a routine surveillance mission. 7 good soldiers, young and eager, following orders and believing in their training. Reed felt the familiar satisfaction of a mission proceeding exactly according to plan. "Sir, Team Alpha is in position," reported Technical Sergeant David Park, his fingers dancing across the communication console. At 24, Park was brilliant with electronics, but still naive about how the real military worked. He believed in heroes and happy endings, concepts Reed had long since abandoned. "Excellent," Reed replied, his voice carrying the authority that had earned him his position. "Maintain regular contact intervals. I want updates every 15 minutes. "What?" Reed didn't know was that 48 hours earlier, enemy forces had begun moving sophisticated signal jamming equipment into the valley. What he couldn't see through his satellite feeds were the dozens of hostile fighters positioning themselves along the ridgelines, turning the valley into a carefully orchestrated trap. And what he had never bothered to learn was that someone else had been watching that valley for weeks. Someone the military had officially erased from existence 2 years ago. Elise Morrow had been everything Reed was not. Where he followed procedures, she improvised brilliantly. Where he sought control, she embraced chaos and turned it into victory. Where he built his career on playing politics, she had focused solely on saving lives. At 36, she had possessed an almost supernatural ability to read terrain, weather, and enemy movements. Her fellow soldiers called her the guardian angel, and her superiors called her their secret weapon, until Operation Black Mountain went wrong, and Reed needed someone to blame. The official report stated that Staff Sergeant Elise Morrow had violated direct orders, compromised mission security, and endangered civilian lives during a classified operation in Eastern Europe. The reality was far more complicated. Elise had discovered that their target was not a terrorist safe house, but a refugee shelter. When she refused to take the shot that would have killed innocent families, Reed had faced a choice: admit the intelligence failure or destroy the one person who knew the truth. He chose his career over her honor. Now, 2 years later, Reed commanded the most advanced military communications center in the country. His walls were lined with commendations, his desk covered with reports that painted him as a rising star in military leadership. He had everything he had ever wanted, except the one thing that had made his unit truly exceptional. "Sir, we're getting some unusual readings," Park said, his brow furrowed as he studied his instruments. "There's electromagnetic interference in the valley. Could be weather-related." Reed barely glanced at the readings. Weather was just another variable to be managed, another challenge to overcome through proper planning and superior technology. He had no idea that the interference was the signature of military-grade jamming equipment, or that his 7 soldiers were walking into the most sophisticated ambush the region had seen in decades. "Probably just atmospheric conditions," Reed said dismissively. "Continue monitoring, but don't let minor interference distract from the mission objectives." What he also didn't know was that high above the valley, hidden among the rocky crags of an impossible cliff face, A figure in faded military fatigues was watching through the scope of a customized rifle. Elise Morrow had been living in these mountains for 2 years, surviving on wilderness skills and the burning need to protect soldiers who didn't even know she existed. She had seen the enemy forces moving into position 3 days ago. She had watched them set up their jamming equipment, position their snipers, and prepare their trap with military precision. And she had listened on forgotten radio frequencies as Reed's team planned their route directly into the kill zone. The military had erased her name from their records, denied her pension, and pretended she had never existed. But they hadn't been able to erase her training, her dedication, or her unwavering commitment to the soldiers she had sworn to protect. Every night, she monitored their radio traffic. Every day, she watched their movements through binoculars. And every mission, she positioned herself where she could intervene if something went wrong. Reed's voice echoed through the command center, confident and controlled. "Team Alpha, this is command. Report your status." The radio crackled with the voice of Sergeant Mike Torres, the team leader. Young, competent, trusting his commanders completely. "Command, this is Alpha. We're approaching the target zone. All systems green. Visibility excellent." Reed smiled, the expression of a man who believed he controlled every variable. But high in the mountains, Elise was counting enemy positions through her scope, calculating wind speed and elevation, and preparing for the moment when Reed's perfect plan would collapse into chaos. She keyed her old emergency radio, the frequency they had forgotten to deactivate when they erased her existence. Her voice was calm, professional, and about to shatter Reed's carefully constructed world. "This is Ghost 7. I have eyes on multiple hostiles. Your people are walking into a trap." But her transmission was still minutes away, and Reed's confidence was about to become his soldier's death sentence. The first sign of trouble came at exactly 14:30 hours, just as Technical Sergeant Park was reaching for his coffee. The radio chatter from Team Alpha cut out mid-sentence, replaced by the harsh white noise of complete signal loss. Park's fingers flew across his console, trying every frequency, every backup channel, every emergency protocol Reed had drilled into them. Nothing. "Sir," Park's voice cracked with the strain of a young soldier facing his worst nightmare. "I've lost all contact with Team Alpha. Complete communications blackout." Lieutenant Colonel Reed felt his stomach drop, but his face remained impassive. 2 years of command had taught him that showing panic would only spread through his team, like a virus. He moved to Park's station, his eyes scanning the displays with practiced efficiency. "Equipment malfunction?" Reed asked, though he already knew the answer. His communication gear was state-of-the-art, maintained by the finest technicians in the military. "Negative, sir. All systems are functioning normally on our end. This looks like jamming, sir. Military grade." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Military-grade jamming meant professional enemy forces, sophisticated equipment, and a level of preparation that suggested Team Alpha hadn't stumbled into a routine patrol. They had walked into a carefully planned ambush. Master Sergeant Lisa Rodriguez, Reed's second in command, appeared at his shoulder. At 42, Rodriguez had served in 3 combat zones and possessed the kind of instincts that kept soldiers alive. Her face was grim as she studied the tactical display. "Sir, if they're being jammed, they're sting ducks down there." 7 soldiers with no way to call for backup, no way to coordinate extraction. Reed's mind raced through possibilities, contingencies, backup plans. But every scenario led to the same terrible conclusion. Without communications, Team Alpha was cut off, surrounded, and probably already under fire. Standard operating procedure was clear. In the event of complete signal loss, assume hostile contact and initiate emergency protocols. "Begin preparation for casualty notifications," Reed ordered. the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "Contact search and rescue, but tell them the area is too hot for immediate extraction attempts." Rodriguez nodded grimly and moved to carry out the orders. Park remained at his station, desperately trying every technical trick he knew, unwilling to accept that 7 good soldiers might be dying while he sat helpless in his air-conditioned command center. What none of them knew was that high above the valley, Elise Morrow was watching the ambush unfold through her rifle scope. She had counted 30 enemy fighters positioned along the ridgelines, all armed with automatic weapons and rocket-propelled grenades. Below them, Team Alpha had taken cover behind a low stone wall, pinned down by withering crossfire from 3 directions. She could see everything Reed's satellites couldn't: the muzzle flashes, the smoke grenades, the enemy fighters moving to flank the trapped Americans. And she could see something else that would have chilled Reed to the bone if he had known about it. The enemy wasn't trying to kill Team Alpha quickly. They were keeping them pinned down, alive, waiting for the rescue attempt that would bring more American soldiers into their trap. Reed paced behind his technicians, his mind calculating losses, political consequences, career implications. 7 dead soldiers would mean investigations, congressional hearings, uncomfortable questions about intelligence failures. His perfect record would be stained with blood, his rising career suddenly in jeopardy. "Sir," Park called out, his voice tight with desperation. "I'm picking up some kind of signal. Weak, but it's there." Reed moved quickly to the console, hope flaring in his chest. "Team Alpha? I don't think so, sir. It's coming from the old emergency frequency, the one we discontinued 2 years ago." Reed felt a chill run down his spine. The old emergency frequency had been Elise Morrow's innovation, a backup system she had designed for exactly this kind of situation. When they had erased her from the records, they should have deactivated all her protocols. But in the chaos of her disgrace, some things had been overlooked. The radio crackled with static, then a voice emerged from the white noise. Calm, professional, unmistakably female. "This is Ghost 7. I have eyes on 7 friendlies pinned down in the valley. Multiple hostiles advancing from 3 positions. Request immediate guidance on rules of engagement." The command center fell silent. Every person in the room knew that call sign, though none of them were supposed to. Ghost 7 had been Elise Morrow's operational designation, and Elise Morrow had been declared dead to the military 2 years ago. Rodriguez was the first to speak, her voice barely a whisper. "That's impossible. Ghost 7 she was terminated." "Officially terminated," Reed corrected, his mind racing. "But apparently not actually dead." Park looked between his superiors, confusion clear on his young face. "Sir, who is Ghost 7? And how does she know about Team Alpha?" Reed closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his past decisions crushing down on him. Elise Morrow had been the finest soldier he had ever commanded, and he had destroyed her career to protect his own. Now she was out there, watching his soldiers die, probably laughing at his helplessness. But the voice on the radio wasn't laughing. It was calm, professional, waiting for orders that Reed no longer had the authority to give her. "Ghost 7. Reed keyed the radio, his voice strained. "This is command. What is your current position and status?" A pause then. Command doesn't recognize Ghost 7 anymore. But Ghost 7 still recognizes command. And right now, your people are in serious trouble. Rodriguez grabbed Reed's arm. "Sir, if she's really up there, if she can see what's happening, she might be their only chance." Reed stared at the radio, knowing that his next words would either save 7 soldiers or damn them all. The woman he had betrayed was offering to help, and his pride was the only thing standing between his soldiers and salvation. On the tactical display, the heat signatures of Team Alpha showed them still in position, still alive, but for how much longer? The enemy was tightening their noose, and Reed's perfect technology was useless against old-fashioned human tactics. "Go 7, Reed finally said, swallowing his pride like poison. "What do you need from us?" The voice that came through the radio was steady, professional, and carried the weight of someone who had been preparing for this moment for 2 years. "Command, this is Go 7. I count 30 hostiles in overwatch positions. Team Alpha is surrounded but alive. They have maybe 10 minutes before the enemy completes their flanking maneuver." Lieutenant Colonel Reed felt his world shifting beneath his feet. For 2 years, he had convinced himself that Elise Morrow was gone, that his decision to sacrifice her career had been necessary for the greater good. Now her voice was cutting through his carefully constructed reality, like a knife through paper. "Go 7, we need immediate situation report," Reed said, his training overriding his personal turmoil. "Can you provide exact enemy positions?" "Negative on exact positions, Command, but I can provide something better." Her voice carried a hint of the confidence that had once made her legendary among her peers. "I can provide solutions." Technical. Sergeant Park was frantically taking notes, his young face alive with hope. This was the first good news they had received since the crisis began, and he was clinging to it like a lifeline. "Sir, if she can see the battlefield, she might be able to guide Team Alpha to safety." Master Sergeant Rodriguez moved closer to the radio, her experienced eyes studying the tactical display. "Go 7, this is Rodriguez. Do you remember me?" A pause, then warmth crept into the mysterious voice. "Lisa Rodriguez. Still asking the smart questions, I see. How's your daughter? Still planning to be a doctor?" Rodriguez's eyes filled with tears. "She's in medical school now. Top of her class." "Good. The world needs healers." The warmth faded, replaced by cold professionalism. "Right now, it needs someone willing to take some very difficult shots." Reed felt his chest tighten. He knew what Elise was offering, and he knew what it would cost her. Taking action without official authorization in a foreign country against enemy combatants would make her an international fugitive if she was caught. But it might be the only way to save his soldiers. "Go 7, what are you requesting?" "I'm not requesting anything, Command. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. In approximately 6 minutes, I'm going to start eliminating hostile targets. Your people need to be ready to move when I give the signal." Park looked up from his console, confusion evident on his face. "Sir, how is one person going to take on 30 enemies?" Rodriguez answered before Reed could speak. "Because she's not just one person. She's Go 7, best sniper in military history. I've seen her take out targets at distances that should be impossible, in conditions that would break most soldiers." Reed remembered those days too. Remembered watching Elise work through his binoculars, seeing her make shots that defied physics and common sense. She had possessed an almost supernatural ability to read wind, calculate elevation, and account for variables that other snipers couldn't even see. But that had been before. Before the classified mission that went wrong. Before the politicians needed a scapegoat. Before Reed had made the decision that would haunt both of their lives forever. "Go 7, you're not authorized for this action. You're not officially part of any unit. You have no support, no backup. If something goes wrong..." A laugh was bitter, cutting through the radio static like glass. "Something already went wrong, Command, 2 years ago. But that doesn't change what needs to be done today." The radio fell silent except for the crackle of atmospheric interference. Reed stared at the tactical display, watching the heat signatures of his trapped soldiers, knowing that every minute brought them closer to death. Pride warred with necessity in his mind. Career concerns battled against the lives of 7 young soldiers who trusted him to bring them home. "Sir," Park said quietly, "the enemy reinforcements I'm seeing movement on the thermal imaging. Vehicles approaching from the north. If they link up with the forces already in position, Team Alpha won't stand a chance, Rodriguez finished. Grimly, Reed closed his eyes, feeling the weight of command crushing down on him. He had built his career on following procedures, trusting the system, maintaining control. But the system had failed his soldiers, and control was an illusion when facing an enemy that didn't follow the rules. "Go 7, he said finally. "You are not authorized to engage, but if you were to engage hypothetically, what would you need from us?" Another pause, then something that might have been respect crept into her voice. "Smart answer, Command. Hypothetically, I would need you to monitor emergency frequencies. When I give the signal, tell your people to move fast and don't look back. And Command? Yes? When this is over, don't try to find me. Don't try to bring me in. Don't try to make this official. I work better as a ghost." The frequency went dead, leaving Reed alone with his thoughts and the terrible knowledge that the lives of his soldiers now rested in the hands of the woman he had betrayed. Outside the command center, the sun was beginning to set over Fort Harrison, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that reminded him uncomfortably of muzzle flashes and blood. Rodriguez placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sir, she's going to save them. I know her. She won't let those boys die, no matter what happened between you two." Reed nodded, but couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Elise Morrow had returned from the dead, and nothing would ever be the same again. High in the mountains above South Zara Valley, a lone figure adjusted her rifle scope and began to calculate the most important shots of her life. The mountain wind was gusting at 12 knots from the northwest, carrying the smell of gunpowder and fear up from the valley below. Elise Morrow lay prone on a rocky outcropping that shouldn't have been accessible to any human being. Her custom rifle resting on a bipod she had crafted herself from salvaged materials. Through her scope, she could see everything that Lieutenant Colonel Reed's sophisticated technology couldn't. Team Alpha was dying by inches. Sergeant Mike Torres had managed to keep his men alive for 23 minutes behind their inadequate stone wall. But ammunition was running low, and the enemy was closing in. Elise could see the fear on their young faces, the way their hands shook as they reloaded, the growing desperation in their movements. She had been watching these mountains for 2 years, learning every ridge, every cave, every wind pattern and thermal current. When the enemy had moved their jamming equipment into position 3 days ago, she had tracked their every movement. When they had positioned their snipers and machine gun nests, she had memorized their locations. And when they had prepared their trap for the American reconnaissance team, she had prepared her own response. The radio crackled in her earpiece, Reed's voice tight with barely controlled panic. "All stations, be advised we have enemy reinforcements approaching from the north. ETA, approximately 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Not enough time for a traditional rescue. Not enough time for air support. Barely enough time for what she was about to attempt." Elise closed her eyes and let her breathing slow, her heartbeat settling into the rhythm that had made her legendary among snipers. In the command center at Fort Harrison, Technical Sergeant Park was watching his instruments with growing alarm. "Sir, I'm counting at least 15 vehicles in that convoy. If they reach the valley..." "They won't," Master Sergeant Rodriguez said firmly, though her knuckles were white as she gripped the edge of the console. Reed keyed his radio to the emergency frequency, hoping against hope that Ghost 7 was still listening. "Ghost 7, we have a problem. Enemy reinforcements inbound, 8 minutes. The response was immediate, calm, almost amused. "Command, I don't have problems. I have targets. Tell your people to get ready to run when they hear them." Fireworks. Through her scope, Elise could see the enemy sniper on the east ridge, approximately 800 meters away. A difficult shot under perfect conditions. Nearly impossible in the gusting wind with a rifle that hadn't been properly maintained. In 2 years. But impossible was what she specialized in. She had learned to shoot from her grandfather, a Marine veteran who had taught her that marksmanship was more than technical skill. It was patience, intuition, and the ability to become one with the weapon and the environment. The military had refined her natural talent, but they had never understood the spiritual dimension of what she did. Wind speed 12 knots, gusting to 15, she whispered to herself. A habit from her early days when talking through the shot helped calm her nerves. Temperature dropping, humidity rising, target moving, target stationary. In the command center, Park was monitoring every frequency, trying to track the mysterious Ghost 7's position through electronic triangulation. Sir, I'm getting some readings from the North Ridge, but it's impossible. That's a vertical cliff face. No one could climb that. Rodriguez smiled grimly. You never met her. Elise could climb anything, survive anywhere. She was like a force of nature. Reed remembered those qualities too. Remembered the missions where Elise had appeared in places that shouldn't have been reachable, taken shots that shouldn't have been possible. He also remembered the jealousy he had felt watching her succeed. Where others failed, the resentment that eventually led him to destroy her career when the opportunity presented itself. Go 7, what's your status? He asked, though part of him hoped she wouldn't answer. If she succeeded in saving his soldiers, it would prove that he had been wrong about her. If she failed, 7 good men would die because of his past mistakes. Status is weapons hot and ready to party, came the reply. Command. In about 30 seconds, you're going to hear some noise. Tell Alpha Team to wait for my signal, then move fast toward the extraction point. Through her scope, Elise tracked the enemy sniper's head as he adjusted his position. She had been studying him for 40 minutes, learning his patterns, predicting his movements. He was good, professional, patient. Under other circumstances, she might have respected his skill. Today, he was just another obstacle between her soldiers and home. She squeezed the trigger. The sound of the shot echoed off the valley walls like thunder, and 800 meters away, the enemy sniper toppled from his perch. In the command center, everyone froze as the sound reached them through the radio. Target 1 down. Ghost 7's voice was matter-of-fact, already moving to her next shot. Alpha Team, move now. Through the thermal imaging, they could see Team Alpha breaking from cover, running in a desperate sprint toward the extraction point. But more enemy positions were already responding. Automatic weapons fire erupting from multiple locations. Elise worked her bolt action with practiced efficiency. Her next shot, taking down a machine gunner who was tracking the fleeing Americans. Then another shot and another, each one precisely calculated, each one saving lives. How is she doing this? Park whispered, watching the thermal signatures of enemy positions going dark one by one. Because she's the best, Rodriguez replied. And because she never forgot who she was fighting for. But Reed was watching something else on his displays. The enemy convoy was getting closer, and even Ghost 7 couldn't stop 15 vehicles full of armed fighters. The mathematics were simple and brutal. One sniper, no matter how skilled, couldn't hold off an army. Ghost 7, you need to extract. That convoy will be in position in 4 minutes. Negative, Command. Alpha Team isn't clear yet. I stay until they're safe. Reed felt something break inside his chest. The woman he had betrayed, the soldier he had sacrificed for his own ambition, was willing to die to save his people. And there was nothing he could do to help her except watch and pray that her skill would be enough. In the valley below, Team Alpha was still running, still alive, still believing that somehow they would make it home. They didn't know about the guardian angel on the impossible cliff, didn't know about the shots that were keeping death at bay with every trigger pull. But they were about to learn. that some ghosts were more real than the living. The enemy convoy reached the valley entrance, just as Team Alpha made it to the extraction point. Lieutenant Colonel Reed watched through satellite imagery as 15 vehicles disgorged nearly 60 armed fighters, turning a desperate situation into an impossible one. Even Ghost 7 couldn't fight those odds. All stations, this is command. Reed broadcast on all frequencies, his voice heavy with the weight of defeat. We have overwhelming enemy forces in the valley. Recommend immediate withdrawal to secondary positions. The response from Ghost 7 was not what he expected. Negative. Command, I didn't climb up here to watch good soldiers die. Alpha Team, take cover at the extraction point. Air support is 12 minutes out. I just need to buy you 12 minutes. Technical Sergeant Park looked up from his console, confusion clear on his young face. Sir, we didn't call for air support. How does she know about air support? Master. Sergeant Rodriguez was already pulling up classified files on her terminal, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Because she never stopped monitoring our communications. 2 years in the wilderness, and she's been listening to every mission. Brief, every tactical update, every ... Her voice trailed off as she found what she was looking for. Sir, you need to see this. Ghost 7 submitted a tactical assessment of South Zara Valley 18 months ago. Recommended approach routes, extraction points, potential ambush sites. Everything that's happening right now, she predicted it. Reed felt the blood drain from his face. That's impossible. She was terminated. She had no access to intelligence reports, no way to know we would be operating in this region. She didn't need our intelligence, Rodriguez said quietly. She was living in these mountains. This was her backyard. She knew this day would come because she made it her business to know. Through her rifle scope, Elise was counting targets and calculating angles. 60 enemies with automatic weapons against one sniper with limited ammunition and no backup. In any reasonable tactical assessment, she was already dead. But Elise had never been reasonable, and she had never been just a sniper. She was a guardian angel, and guardian angels didn't abandon their charges. Her first shot took out the convoy commander as he was organizing his forces. The second eliminated a communications specialist trying to coordinate the assault. The third and fourth route machine gunners who were setting up fields of fire that would have made the extraction point untenable. In the command center, Park was trying to track her position through muzzle flash analysis, but the readings made no sense. Sir, she's shooting from at least 3 different positions. How is she moving that fast on a cliff face? Because she's not just moving, Rodriguez said with growing amazement. She's ghost walking. It's a technique she developed for mountain warfare, using rope systems and natural climbing routes to move between prepared positions almost instantaneously. Reed remembered the training exercises where Elise had demonstrated those techniques, remembered being impressed and slightly unnerved by her ability to appear and disappear like smoke. He also remembered the jealousy he had felt watching Junior. Officers look at her with the kind of respect and admiration he craved for himself. That jealousy had cost him the best soldier he had ever commanded. Now it might cost him 7 more. Ghost 7, your ammunition situation? Reed asked, though. He dreaded the answer. Getting creative, command. But I've got enough to keep the party interesting. What she didn't say was that she was down to her last 17 rounds, that she had been rationing ammunition for 2 years, that every shot now had to count for multiple targets. What she also didn't say was that she had prepared for this moment, in ways that went beyond conventional military training. The enemy forces were advancing on the extraction point in a coordinated assault when Elise triggered her first surprise. The explosion rocked the valley floor as improvised mines she had buried months ago detonated under the lead vehicles. Secondary explosions followed as fuel tanks ignited, turning the night into a hellscape of fire and smoke. "What the hell was that?" Reed demanded. "Insurance policy," Ghost 7 replied calmly. "I've had 2 years to prepare for uninvited guests. This valley has more surprises than Disneyland." Park was staring at his instruments in disbelief. "Sir, thermal imaging shows at least 20 enemy casualties from those explosions. But how did she know exactly where to place charges months in advance?" Rodriguez was reading through more of Ghost 7's old tactical assessments, her respect for her former colleague growing with each page. Because she didn't just learn this terrain. She mastered it. Every approach route, every choke point, every natural ambush site. She turned herself into the perfect weapon for defending this specific piece of ground. Reed felt a mixture of admiration and growing dread. Elise was magnificent, deadly, and completely unsustainable. Even with her preparations, even with her supernatural skill, she was still one person against an army. Mathematics would eventually win, and when it did, she would die alone on that mountain. "Go 7, you need to extract now," he ordered, putting all his command authority into his voice. "That's a direct order." The laughter that came back was bitter, tired, but unbroken. "Command, you discharged me 2 years ago. You don't get to give me orders anymore. But I'll give you one. Take care of those boys when they get home. They've earned it." The radio went silent except for static, and Reed realized that Ghost 7 had switched to a different frequency. She was cutting herself off, preparing for a final stand that would either save Team Alpha or die trying. Rodriguez looked up from her terminal, tears streaming down her face. "Sir, I've been going through her service record. Every mission, every commendation, every life she saved. Do you know what her efficiency rating was?" Reed shook his head, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Perfect, sir. 100% mission success rate over 8 years of active duty. Not one soldier died under her protection. Not one." Rodriguez's voice broke. "And we threw her away because one politician needed someone to blame." Outside the command center, night had fallen over Fort Harrison, but in South Zero Valley, the real darkness was just beginning. Ghost 7 was down to her last few rounds. Enemy reinforcements were still arriving, and air support was still 8 minutes away. The mathematics were simple, brutal, and unavoidable. Someone was going to die in those mountains tonight. Reed could only pray it wouldn't be his soldiers, but deep in his heart, he knew that Elise Morrow would never let that happen. Even if it killed her, air support was still 6 minutes out when Ghost 7's ammunition ran dry. Through his thermal imaging display, Lieutenant Colonel Reed watched the enemy forces regrouping for a final assault on Team Alpha's position. 60 fighters with automatic weapons against 7 exhausted soldiers with limited ammunition and nowhere to run. The radio crackled with Sergeant Torres's voice, strained but professional. "Command, we're taking heavy fire from multiple directions. Request immediate support." Reed's throat felt like sandpaper as he keyed the microphone. "Alpha team, hold your position. Air support inbound in 6 minutes." "Sir," Technical Sergeant Park said quietly, "Ghost 7 has gone silent. No muzzle flashes, no radio contact. I think she might be out of ammunition." The words hit Reed like a physical blow. Without Ghost 7's suppressing fire, the enemy would overrun Team Alpha's position in minutes. 7 good soldiers would die because he had failed them, just like he had failed Elise 2 years ago. Master Sergeant Rodriguez was monitoring multiple frequencies, desperately hoping for some word from their guardian angel. "Ghost 7, this is command. Please respond." Only static answered her call, but what Reed couldn't see through his satellite feeds was happening 1,500 meters away, where Elise Morrow was making the most important decision of her life. She had indeed exhausted her rifle ammunition, but she was far from finished. For 2 years, she had been preparing for this exact scenario, and she had planned for contingencies that went far beyond conventional tactics, moving with the silence of smoke through prepared positions along the cliff face. She reached a cache she had hidden 8 months ago. Inside the waterproof container were materials that would have made a demolitions expert weep with envy. Military-grade explosives, detonation devices, and timer systems that she had borrowed from various military installations during her years of ghostly existence. The radio in the command center suddenly crackled to life. "Command, this is Ghost 7. Change of tactics. Tell Alpha Team to take cover and prepare for immediate extraction." Reed nearly collapsed with relief at the sound of her voice. "Ghost 7, what's your situation? We thought you were." "Reports of my demise have been greatly exaggerated," came the dry reply. "But I'm about to make some noise that's going to reshape this valley. Air support better hurry up." Through her night vision scope, Elise could see the enemy forces massing for their final assault. They had grown confident during her period of silence, believing that their mysterious opponent had finally been eliminated. They were advancing in tight formations, concentrated around the natural choke points that led to Team Alpha's position, exactly where she had hoped they would be. "Ghost 7 to command," she transmitted. "In approximately 30 seconds, this valley is going to become very unhealthy for anyone who's not American. Air support should adjust their approach vector to avoid the fireworks." Park looked up from his instruments, confusion evident on his young face. "Sir, what kind of ordnance could one person be carrying that would affect air support flight patterns?" Rodriguez was studying the tactical display with growing understanding. "Not ordnance, engineering. She's been living in these mountains for 2 years. She knows every rock, every cave, every structural weakness." Reed felt a chill of understanding wash over him. "She's not planning to attack the enemy. She's planning to change the battlefield itself." The first explosion came from the North Ridge, a carefully placed charge that brought down tons of rock directly onto the main enemy formation. The second and third explosions followed in rapid succession, collapsing strategic sections of the valley walls and creating impassable barriers that separated the enemy forces into isolated pockets. But the largest explosion came last, a massive detonation that sealed the valley's main entrance and trapped the remaining enemy forces in what had suddenly become a killing ground with no escape routes. "Jesus Christ," Park whispered, staring at the seismic readings on his instruments. "She just brought down half the mountain." "Negative." Ghost 7's voice came through the radio, calm and professional, despite the chaos she had just unleashed. "I brought down the exact sections I wanted to bring down. Alpha Team is now in a protected position with clear extraction routes. Enemy forces are neutralized or scattered. Mission accomplished." Reed stared at his displays, trying to comprehend what he was witnessing. The thermal imaging showed enemy heat signatures trapped under rockfalls or fleeing in panic. The organized assault had been completely shattered, replaced by isolated groups of survivors who posed no threat to the extraction operation. "Air support, this is command," Reed broadcast, his voice filled with awe. "Valley is secure for extraction. Proceed to designated coordinates." Rodriguez was crying openly now, her respect for Ghost 7 transcending her professional composure. "Sir, she did it. She actually did it. 7 soldiers are going home tonight because of her." But Reed was thinking about more than just tonight's victory. He was remembering classified files, strategic assessments, tactical innovations that had made Elise Morrow legendary among military planners. 2 years ago, he had destroyed her career out of jealousy and political necessity. Tonight, she had demonstrated why that decision had been the greatest mistake of his life. "Go 7. Reed keyed the radio. "Outstanding work. Truly outstanding." Request you proceed to extraction point for immediate recovery. The pause that followed was long enough for Reed to feel his heart sink. When Ghost 7 finally responded, her voice carried a finality that he recognized from their last conversation 2 years ago. Negative, Command. I'm not coming in. I never was. Ghost 7. Elise ... Reed's professional composure finally cracked. You just saved 7 lives. You deserve recognition, reinstatement, full honors. You deserve to come home. Her laughter was sad, distant, like an echo from a different world. Command, I'm home. This mountain is my home now. These valleys are my responsibility. And somewhere out there, more soldiers are going to need a guardian angel. Park was tracking the extraction. Helicopters on his screen, watching Team Alpha being loaded aboard for their journey to safety. 7 young soldiers who would see their families again, who would have children and careers and long lives, all because of a woman their own military had officially erased. Ghost 7, Rodriguez spoke into the radio. Lisa here. You know, you'll always have friends who remember. Friends who know what you really are. I know, Lisa. Take care of your daughter. The world needs good doctors almost as much as it needs invisible guardians. The radio frequency went silent, and Reed knew that. Ghost 7 had switched off her transmitter. The mysterious sniper who had appeared from the dead to save his soldiers had vanished back into legend, leaving only questions and a debt that could never be repaid. In the aftermath, as reports were filed and medals were considered, Reed would struggle with how to document the night's events. How do you officially recognize a soldier who doesn't officially exist? How do you explain tactical victories achieved by someone the military had declared dead to the world? The answer, he realized, was that some heroes were meant to remain in the shadows. Some victories were won by ghosts who asked for nothing except the knowledge that good soldiers made it home alive. But in the mountains, above South Zara Valley, Elise Morrow was already preparing for the next crisis, the next group of soldiers who would need her protection. Because once you become a guardian angel, Reed understood now, you never really stop serving. You just serve from the shadows, where the light of recognition never reaches, but where honor burns brightest of all. 3 days after the South Zara Valley incident, Lieutenant Colonel Reed sat in his office, staring at 7 personnel files spread across his desk. Each file belonged to a soldier who should have been dead, who would have been dead if not for the intervention of a woman. The military had spent 2 years pretending didn't exist. The official after-action reports were exercises in creative writing. Tactical airstrikes neutralized enemy positions. Favorable terrain conditions contributed to successful extraction. No casualties sustained during reconnaissance mission. Nowhere in the sanitized documents was there any mention of Ghost 7, of impossible shots taken from unreachable positions, or of one woman reshaping an entire battlefield through 2 years of careful preparation. But Reed knew the truth, and the weight of that knowledge was crushing him. A knock on his door interrupted his brooding. Enter. Master Sergeant Rodriguez stepped into the office, her usually composed demeanor showing cracks of barely contained emotion. Sir, I've completed my review of the Ghost 7 protocols. And Rodriguez sat down heavily in the chair across from Reed's desk. Sir, she never stopped watching us. For 2 years, she's been monitoring our communications, tracking our operations, positioning herself to intervene when necessary. The South Zara Valley incident wasn't the first time she saved our people. Reed felt his stomach drop. Explain. Operation Desert Wind 8 months ago. We lost contact with a forward observer team for 6 hours. When they were recovered, they reported enemy sniper fire that stopped just before they would have been overrun. The team leader said it was like someone was watching over them. Rodriguez opened a tablet and pulled up more files. Operation Night. Falcon 4 months ago. A convoy hit an IED and came under heavy fire. Witnesses reported long-range sniper fire that eliminated the attackers, but we had no assets in the area. The convoy commander said the shots came from an impossible angle, from terrain that couldn't be accessed. Reed's hands were trembling as he reached for his coffee cup. How many incidents? 7 confirmed, possibly more. Sir, she's been our guardian angel for 2 years, and we never knew it. Every time our people were in real danger, every time. Our technology failed or our intelligence was wrong, she was there. The implications were staggering. While Reed had been building his career on successful missions and 0 casualties, the real credit belonged to a woman they had betrayed and abandoned. Every commendation on his wall, every promotion he had received, was built on the foundation of Elise Morrow's silent sacrifice. Sir, Rodriguez continued, there's something else. I've been analyzing her tactical assessments, the ones she submitted before her termination. She predicted every major threat we faced in this region. The supply route attacks, the communications disruptions, the ambush sites, everything. Reed closed his eyes, feeling the full weight of his failures pressing down on him. She was always better than the rest of us, better tactician, better soldier, better person, and I destroyed her because I was jealous of what I could never be. Rodriguez leaned forward, her voice intense. Sir, it's not too late. We could reach out, offer reinstatement, full honors, back pay for 2 years of unofficial service. She deserves recognition for what she's done. She doesn't want recognition, Reed said quietly. She made that clear. She wants to remain a ghost, to keep protecting soldiers who don't even know she exists. But Rodriguez wasn't willing to accept that answer. Sir, with respect, what she wants and what she deserves are 2 different things. This woman has spent 2 years living in the wilderness, using her own resources, risking her life to protect our people. She's earned the right to come home. Reed stood and walked to his window, looking out at the parade ground where young soldiers were training for missions that might depend on Ghost 7's invisible protection. And what if she says no? What if bringing her back into the light destroys the very thing that makes her so effective? Then at least we'll have tried to do the right thing, Rodriguez replied. At least we'll have acknowledged what she's given. Yes. Reed turned back to his sergeant, seeing the determination in her eyes. Rodriguez had served with Elise, had witnessed her capabilities firsthand, had never forgotten the bonds forged in combat. In her face, Reed saw the respect and loyalty that he had thrown away for the sake of his own ambition. What are you proposing? Rodriguez pulled out a thick folder and placed it on Reed's desk. Full investigation into the circumstances of her termination. Review of all evidence from Operation Black Mountain. Official recognition of her actions over the past 2 years. And a formal invitation to return to active duty with full reinstatement of rank and privileges. Reed picked up the folder, feeling its weight. Inside were documents that would expose his role in Elise's disgrace, evidence that would end his career and possibly result in court-martial proceedings. But they also contained the truth, and after 2 years of living with lies, the truth felt like a relief. This will destroy me, Reed said simply. Yes, sir, it probably will, Rodriguez agreed. But it will also give her back what we took from her, and it might convince her that the military is worth coming home to. Reed thought about the 7 soldiers who had walked out of that valley alive, about the families who wouldn't receive death notifications, about the children who would grow up with fathers they almost lost. He thought about Elise Morrow, living alone in the mountains, protecting people who didn't know her name. And he thought about honor, real honor, not the hollow version he had been chasing for years. Prepare the paperwork, Reed said finally. All of it. Full disclosure, complete investigation, official recognition. And Rodriguez? Yes, sir? Make sure she knows this comes with no strings attached. She doesn't have to come back, doesn't have to accept anything we offer. This is about doing what's right, not about what we want from her." Rodriguez smiled, the first genuine smile Reed had seen from her in months. "Yes, sir. I think she'll appreciate that." As Rodriguez left to begin the process that would either redeem or destroy Reed's career, he remained at his window, looking up at the mountains in the distance. Somewhere up there, Ghost 7 was watching, waiting, ready to sacrifice everything for soldiers who might never know her name, but they would know it now. Reed would make sure of that, even if it cost him everything he had worked to achieve. Some debts could only be paid with the truth. 6 weeks after the South Zara Valley incident, a package arrived at Fort Harrison addressed to Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Reed. There was no return address, no postmark, just a weathered envelope that somehow made it through military security to his desk. Inside was a single photograph. 7 soldiers boarding a helicopter, alive and heading home. On the back, in precise handwriting, were the words, "Mission accomplished. Thank you for doing the right thing." Ian Reed smiled for the first time in weeks. The investigation had concluded 3 days earlier, officially clearing Elise Morrow of all charges related to Operation Black Mountain and acknowledging her 2 years of unofficial service. Reed's own career had ended quietly with an early retirement. His role in her disgrace exposed, but handled with the discretion that protected institutional reputation while delivering personal justice. He didn't mind. Some prices were worth paying. Technical Sergeant Park knocked on Reed's office door, entering with a folder full of reports. At 24, Park had aged considerably in the weeks since the Valley incident, his youthful optimism tempered by an understanding of how the real military worked. "Sir, the Ghost 7 protocols have been officially established. Emergency frequency reactivated, tactical assessment procedures updated, and ... double quotes. Park hesitated. "And what, Sergeant?" "And we've received 3 more reports of unknown sniper assistance in different theaters. Long-range elimination of threats, impossible shots from unreachable positions. Same signature as our Ghost 7 incidents." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Copycat operations?" "No, sir. The techniques are too specialized, too precise, I think. I think she's not the only one out there. I think there might be others like her, soldiers, who were abandoned by the system but never abandoned their duty." The thought was both humbling and terrifying. How many Ghost 7s were there? Invisible guardians protecting soldiers who would never know their names. How many careers had been built on the sacrifices of people the military had thrown away? Master Sergeant Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, a slight smile on her face. "Sir, you might want to see this." She handed Reed a tablet showing a news article from a small-town newspaper. The headline read, "Local woman establishes scholarship fund for military children." Below was a photo of a donation ceremony, and in the background, barely visible among the crowd, was a familiar figure with long black hair and cold, intelligent eyes. "She's using the back pay," Rodriguez said quietly. "Every penny of the official compensation we awarded her, turning it into scholarships for children of soldiers killed in action." Reed studied the photo, seeing the careful way Elise had positioned herself to avoid direct camera angles while still being present for the ceremony. Even in civilian clothes, even surrounded by peaceful small-town citizens, she carried herself with the alertness of someone always ready for action. "She's not coming back, is she?" Reed asked, though he already knew the answer. "No, sir, but she's not disappearing either. The scholarship fund has a contact address, a way for families to reach her if they need help. I think she's building something new, something beyond what the military could offer her." Reed handed the tablet back to Rodriguez, feeling a mixture of regret and admiration. Elise Morrow had become something more than a soldier, more than an individual. She had become a symbol of what military service could be when stripped of politics, bureaucracy, and personal ambition. What about the official recognition, the medals, the commendations? Rodriguez's smile widened. She sent them back with a note. Said medals belong on the chests of soldiers who need recognition to know their worth. She knows what she's worth. Park looked between his superiors, confusion evident on his young face. Sir, I don't understand. She saved lives, risked everything, earned every honor we could give her. Why won't she accept what she's earned? Reed walked to his window one last time, looking up at the mountains where Ghost 7 might be watching, might be planning her next intervention. Because some people serve for recognition, Sergeant. And some people serve because service is its own reward. That evening, as Reed cleaned out his office and prepared for civilian life, he found a letter that had been slipped under his door. No envelope, no signature. Just a few lines written in the same precise handwriting he had seen on the photograph. Marcus, the young soldiers you command are good people who deserve better leadership than either of us provided. Teach them that honor isn't about following orders or protecting careers. It's about protecting each other, even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. Take care of them. Go 7. Reed folded the letter carefully and placed it in his jacket pocket. Tomorrow he would begin his new life as a civilian, but tonight he had one last duty to perform. He activated the Go 7 emergency frequency and spoke into the microphone. Go 7, this is command. Message received and understood. Thank you for everything. All stations out. The radio remained silent, but somehow Reed knew she had heard him. Somewhere in the mountains or in a small town scholarship ceremony, or watching over soldiers who didn't know they needed protection, Elise Morrow was listening, and she was smiling. 6 months later, Master Sergeant Rodriguez, now promoted to the position Reed had vacated, received reports of unusual sniper activity during a hostage rescue operation in Eastern Europe. Impossible shots, unreachable positions, and 7 hostages who walked away alive when they should have died. She keyed the emergency frequency they had maintained in honor of their guardian angel. Go 7, this is command. Wherever you are, thank you. Thank you. The response came immediately, warm with affection and steady with purpose. Command, this is Go 7. Always watching, always ready. Take care of our people. The frequency went silent, but the promise remained. In a world where politics and ambition often corrupted the noble ideals of military service, there were still those who served in silence, who protected without recognition, who loved without expecting love in return. They called themselves ghosts, but they were the most alive people in the military. They were the keepers of honor, the guardians of the forgotten, the invisible heroes who held the line between chaos and hope. And as long as good soldiers needed protection, Go 7 would be watching from the shadows, ready to remind the world that some duties never end, some loyalties never die, and some ghosts are more real than the living. The greatest heroes, after all, are the ones who need no recognition to know their worth. They serve because service is sacred, protect because protection is love, and sacrifice because sacrifice is the highest form of honor. In the end, that's what makes them truly immortal. Mission accomplished. All souls accounted for. Go 7. Going dark, but never really gone. Never truly silent. Always watching over those who need watching over most. Forever. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.